Hi, my name is Jordan. I am a special education teacher from the UK. I share my passion for everything communication, sensory regulation and fun lesson ideas for my classroom of disabled pupils aged 4 to 11. Each week, I am joined by experts in the field, answering your questions and sharing our knowledge and experience working alongside our beautiful young people. Let's get started. Hello everybody. If you don't know me and you're new here, my name is Jordan and I am a special education teacher teaching children with mainly autism but all special needs aged 4 to 11. I've got a question. What could we try with a child non-verbal apart from no, that trash is everything and laughs? He's 6. Okay, what could we try with a child that's non-verbal apart from saying no, that trash is everything and laughs? Yeah. It's part of the game, right? You say no, he laughs, he throws, you get even more frantic, and you say no again, and it's part of the game. He's learned that that's a great way to get that interaction and build that relationship. So the answer is to build him an even better way of building that relationship and that interaction. I love chasing games or tickle games or wrestling games. It's often really popular, something really physical and that they get into, and then they can ask for that in a more appropriate way. So I use the sign more. I can't do it because I'm holding my phone, but more. And then that kind of builds that interaction. It's really lovely. So just try and flip it on its head and do tickle games. And you can still say no like that, tickle, but make it something more appropriate, maybe more safe than throwing. I would say is a really good one for that one. Hello everybody. How did you find it when you had to do a mainstream placement for your teacher training? So my whole training was mainstream, even though I knew I wanted to do special ed. So basically my history is I've got a degree in acting, and then I did a PGCE for 1 year in primary education because there wasn't an option back then to do special education. I think there is now, so I definitely would have done that. Because before I did my degree, for a couple of years, I was a teaching assistant in a special education school, and that's what made me want to do teaching in the first place. So I knew I wanted to go into special ed, but I had to, do primary education degree just to learn. And I had to kind of get in the right mindset, but all the way through I was like, this is an absolute waste of time. Like, none of this is relevant. I don't know if normal teachers feel like that anyway, but I definitely felt like that. I just thought this is a complete waste of time when I was learning about Pi Corbett and phonics this and I don't know, whatever, certain maths methods. But yeah, the year groups that I was in, my first year group was year 6. So again, like teaching things that I've never had to teach since, but I have taught that age since. So that was really good for social reasons to know where they're at and physical reasons to know where they're at. So that was actually quite useful. And then my next placement was in year 1. My first class that I had for 5 years was at a year 1 level, and they were year 6 age. So actually, all the way through my training, I thought this is not useful. But then I ended up teaching a class the age of the year 6s and the ability of the year 1. So actually it was incredibly useful. But yeah, so that's how I did it. And that was how I found it. Yeah, I found it quite frustrating. I got a job where I used to TA at. Straight after my degree, I started as an underqualified teacher in the May, so straight away. And then the learning really started from then. I had an amazing group of teaching assistants that year, and I had them for the 5 years that just dragged me through the first 2 years because my goodness, it's so hard. It's so different than, my degree didn't teach me anything about that, and my PGCE taught me barely anything that was actually relevant to my class. So it was lots of learning from the teaching assistants, lots of training days. Luckily my school back then was really hot on training days. So I went to London lots and did lots of amazing training with amazing people, and worked with speech language therapists and occupational therapists that were part of the school, and just learn and just try to absorb everything like a sponge. And now I'm where I am today. But yeah, back then I knew nothing. Let's have some more questions. Have you ever worked in mainstream? Yeah, so that's kind of my question was, I haven't worked in mainstream. I've always been a special education teacher. But I have supported some children in mainstream, freelance, and I did my training in mainstream. And my class is a special provision class, but it's attached to a mainstream school. So I feel like I know what goes on, and like I'm up to date with mainstream practices and the challenges that go on there as far as special education as well. Hi Jordan, hope you're okay. Just wanted to say I think you're an amazing teacher and inspired me to teach special needs. What a lovely message. Thank you, Regan. That is so lovely. It's such a wonderful way of teaching. If you're creative and a little bit rebellious and like to think outside the box, then special education is a really, really amazing way of teaching. It's really creative, and even though you're set in routine, because that's really important, no day is the same. So yeah, if you like that, then special education is a really good one. As an early career teacher in mainstream with 50% special needs in my class, your resources and ideas have helped so much. My goodness, Kate, how are you doing that? 50% SEN. It's just huge. It's just a sign of the times, isn't it? It's just a sign that there is not enough special needs schools out there. But well done, Kate, for doing it. And that does motivate me to keep sharing, because my goodness, if I knew nothing as a new teacher in an SEN school with 2 years teaching assistant experience behind me, an amazing TA supporting me that knew exactly what to do, and speech and language therapists and occupational therapists in my room, and only 10 kids, and I struggled, like, God, hats off to you, girl. That is not easy. Hey everybody for joining. Hello. Do you do Montessori curriculums? I don't do Montessori curriculums. I've never done Montessori. However, I do follow some people on here that do, and it does look interesting. I can see how it works for some children and some families. I totally can see it. It seems really good at encouraging independence and encouraging like some maturity and responsibility, which I really love, actually. So yeah, I would like to learn more about it, but I don't really know too much about it. Any more questions? Not a question. I just 100% same opinions about mainstream. I just couldn't do it. The funny thing is though, mainstream teachers think the same about us. Like I say, I'm attached to a mainstream school, and I would say like half of the teachers are intrigued by what I do in my room, and they kind of like come in and drop something off, and you can see them have a little look around like, oh, this looks quite fun actually. And then some other teachers completely avoid it, or when they do come in, they just look absolutely terrified. So it's just not for everybody, is it? Yeah, it's what makes the world go round. There's a job round there for everybody. And there is a type of teaching for everybody. Very different. I feel like if I went into mainstream now as a teacher, it would feel brand new to me. Like I would have to start from scratch. I would not have a clue. And I feel like mainstream teachers coming into special education, it's absolutely okay if you feel like a new teacher again, even if you've been teaching for years, because it's a completely different job. It's a completely different way of working, planning, assessing, everything. So different. My 5-year-old is classed as a flight risk. When do you think he'll grow out of it? This is really challenging. It's so scary, and it limits yours and their world so much when they're runners or elopers. I can't say when or if he'll grow out of it. All I can say, I don't even know. It's hard. I've worked with children of all ages from 2 or younger to 19, and some of them grow out of it, and some of them find they're really safe and actually quite passive once they've gone through the teenage years, but others don't, and it's really hard to know. It's really, really hard. Yeah, we rely a lot on coded door locks and window locks and hiding keys and fencing and stuff. It's so hard, isn't it? And trying to get out safely, out and about, feels like such an impossible challenge. Yeah, especially if you don't have a big support network of other people that can go with you. It'd be really hard. Benefits of swimming for neurodisorder conditions. Interesting question. But benefits of swimming. Swim with my class every single week, every single Friday. And there are so many benefits. First of all, obviously the fitness benefit, because we're all in the water, which is great. But also by being in the water, I've noticed that relationships between my students and my adults have really gotten so strong. I think there's something quite trusting about being in the water together. And you haven't got the same pressures as in the classroom. And there's no targets or no, learning objectives or whatever. It's just being together, present in the moment. And I've really noticed some beautiful relationships forming between children and between adults and children in the swimming pool, which wouldn't have happened otherwise. So I love it for that. I also love it for teaching safety. We walk to the pool every week, and obviously the safety in the water as well. So it's really great for modelling road safety and safety around water and slipping and running and all of those kind of things, and listening to instructions. It's also really great for learning to get dressed and undressed more independently, because you've kind of got a bit of time to do that, whereas you don't normally in the classroom. Yeah, it's really good for so many things, far more than just learning to swim. And I love taking my class every week. It's an absolute joy seeing their faces just light up, and it's such a great sensory activity that meets so many needs. The only need it doesn't is because of the echoey and loud kind of pool space. But proprioception, obviously the water's touching every part of your body. Vestibular, because we're chucking them around and they're falling off the floats and they're going under the water. It's so great for vestibular. It's great. It's great for auditory processing, because they're tolerating the sounds and the echoes in the water. Or they put their ears under the water if they want it a bit more muted. They've got complete control over that. It's so great for all the senses. Taste, I suppose, because they drink all the water. Not ideal, but it happens. I've been doing bucket time stage 1 to 3, but my child is not interested anymore. Been doing it for over a year now. If they're not interested, that is not a them issue, that is an us issue as adults. So just try and change it up. Maybe it needs to be like different resources, or louder or bigger, or maybe like just don't use a bucket, use a box or a bag. Just try and change it up and make it new. Put it in a different environment, so maybe take it outside or take it in another room, put it under a table. You can still do the same things, but it can be like refreshed and make it a little bit more exciting. Yeah, I always say if your child isn't interested or wanting to come over to bucket, then that's an us problem, and we need to kind of change it up and make it more exciting, because it needs to be absolutely irresistible to them. Otherwise, we're not doing it right. Have you ever found your sensory profile or way of experiencing affected by being with autistic people a lot? That's a really interesting question. I definitely am neurodivergent myself, should I say. I'm neurodivergent myself. And I'm definitely more aware of my neurodivergence because I'm around neurodivergent people. It shone a light on how I manage myself in my body, in my life, and how my brain works, for sure. It's not because I'm with them that I'm like that. I was like that anyway. It's just an awareness. And because I'm talking about and looking for meeting their needs all day, every day, it then makes me hyper aware when I get home of meeting my needs and why I'm doing certain things. For example, when I get home, I want to eat snacks and I want to have a bath. And that is because I want those crunchy foods and like salty foods that feel good in my mouth for a bit of stimulation in that way. I want to have a bath because it just relaxes me. It keeps me in one place. I can't use my phone in the bath, so it keeps me away from that. And like that, that proprioception properties, just like in swimming, it just holds me and grounds me. I also respond really well to weighted blankets and certain music, like brown noise I respond really well to. So I'm just kind of like more aware of myself because I'm so aware of my students. So I would say my sensory profile is just more aware to me because I work with people that are also sensory regulation. Interestingly, all the best staff I've ever worked with are neurodivergent because they just get the children. They can read them. They totally understand. They're so empathetic, and they just get. I wish I could come and work for you. Oh my God, wouldn't that be so fun if we just have a massive party, all the autistic students and all the caregivers together? That would be so fun. Pretty overwhelming. I say fun, I would actually get so overwhelmed by that. But in theory, it's fun. How did you become a teacher? I want to become an SEN teacher, but don't have a degree, so can't do a PGCE. But there are lots of ways if you don't have a degree. You could do a degree in uni, or you can do a from home, like remote degree. You can even do it part-time. It just takes a little bit longer. Lots of different ways of doing it. I think there's even degrees in education and special education now, whereas there wasn't a degree in special education when I trained. I became a teacher through PTC. What sort of freelance have you done? Oh my goodness, I've done so much. So my first freelance, so I used to be a full-time special education teacher. I did that for 10 years in a special needs school. And then I first went out and trained to be a foster carer and could be a freelance job. You can do it as respite, or you can do it as an emergency, so you don't need to do it full time. But I actually did it a little bit and then enjoyed it so much that I actually left teaching for a bit and did it full time. So foster care I've done as freelance. I've also made toys, so little sensory toys and wooden toys, because there was a need for that. I've also visited schools and given some consultancy on their classroom setups or what they can do to support their children or profiled their children. I've written or supported referrals or for EHCPs, I've done that. I have been a private teacher or a private tutor for SEN. I've been a supply teacher for SEN. There's so many different ways. Once you've got that teaching degree, there are so many different ways that you can use it for freelance. I've never, ever struggled to find work. Even when I moved to Cornwall, which was 6 hours away from Essex, I found work straight away because of that degree. I've set up my own forest school. I've worked in alternative provision. I've supported children out of education. Like, I've done all sorts because of that degree. I've worked in a daycare in Canada. I went to Canada for a season and on a snowboard, like ski season, and worked in a daycare because of my degree. So yeah, it's never stopped me. I've done all sorts of different things. I think that's why I can kind of relate to all these different questions, all these different people that follow me, because I've done so many different things. So yeah, I've gained experience in so many different places. Whereas actually, in the 10 years before, when I was only in one special needs school, I learnt loads, but my range of understanding wasn't a range of understanding. It was quite limited. I knew it really well, but I only knew that way. Whereas since then, in the most recent 10 years since that, I've worked with so many different people in so many different places, in so many different ways, so many different types of children, that actually I've learnt even more and even more useful because it's just so varied. How do you look after your own mental health? I imagine it can be overwhelming holding space for others every day. Good question, Beth. Yeah, as caregivers, as any caregiver, I would say, whether you're a parent or working in hospital or working in school or any caregiver, when you give so much of yourself every day and when you're so empathetic and so in tune with the person you're giving care to, if you're doing it really well, and so many do, it is so easy to get burnt out because you're giving so much of yourself all the time. And I still haven't really worked out, my husband will tell you, I still haven't really worked out how to avoid that. I think the school holidays help because there's lots of those, but I'm still trying to work it out. This recent holiday, so in Easter, I started some gardening and I found that was really lovely for my own mental health. And every Wednesday evening I've joined a free gardening course that's local to me, and I'm finding that really good. I also do a board game night every Tuesday night with friends, and that helps me because that's a bit of a, something for me. But I'm still trying to work it out. I haven't quite worked out that one yet. Struggling with planning for bucket time. I've seen you have planning. How many activities, ideas are there if I were to purchase? So the planning is £5 and it's 4 years worth, and it covers 12 topics, and then it rotates. So basically I do a topic every term for 4 years, and then I start back on year one again. There's lots of ideas. There's pictures on my website if you want to see an example. I'm happy to send you more information if you want that. And then every link, every statement or idea is clickable, so it either takes you to the lyrics of that song or a video of me doing it, or it takes you to where to get the resources from or something. So there's kind of like it's more. I don't know how many pages it is. Yeah. And then there's also an assessment tool as part of it as well, so you can assess and show data on the improvements of engagement and attention and speech language and attainment and all those kind of things for bucket time. So that's as part of it as well for £5. Hey Hannah, good to see you. It's lovely to see some old faces on here. It's so lovely. Okay, how to deal with toilet regression in an 18-year-old. Trained fully at 13, now almost fully incontinent, unable to recognise need for the bathroom, but no medical conditions present. That would be my first thing, would be to speak to a school nurse or to speak to a medical professional to see if there was any physical reason why. If everything has been ruled out, there's no physical reason, then it could be a sensory thing, a sensory need that is being met. Toileting is often really hard for, I don't know if they're on the spectrum, but toileting can be really difficult for people on the spectrum. It was explained to me once by somebody diagnosed with autism that going to the toilet is almost like losing a limb, like it feels like part of you and you're leaving it there, and that can be really distressing. So maybe something's triggering that anxiety and that stress that is then, like, for some reason being attached to toileting, and there could have been a trigger there. Maybe go down the psychological route, maybe speak to CAMS or an educational psychologist about what could be going on there for them, because if it's not medical or physical, it would most likely be sensory, so maybe occupational therapy, or psychological, so a clinical psychologist. Yeah. Hey Jordan, what do you look for when looking at a school to work in? That is such a great question. When I looked at my current school, I didn't even go for the job that I am in now at all, actually. I saw an advert for a behaviour support teaching assistant and thought, I'd been out of teaching for couple of years and I was ready to go back into it. Well, I was ready to go back into school again, but I didn't really want to be a teacher again, because from my memory it just was stressful and really exhausting and just completely burnt me out, and I was finally feeling good again, and I thought, I don't want to be a teacher again, but I really miss the kids. So I found a job advertised for a behaviour specialist, like support assistant, at my local school, only a couple of minutes away from me, and I thought, great, I'll go for that. And in the interview they walked me around, and as part of the interview, they showed me my current class now, my current room. This is amazing. If you've seen my account, I've pinned it at the top. The room is amazing. There is 4 or 5 different rooms as part of my classroom. There's a sensory room. There's an amazing garden. Only 10 kids, loads of adults. It was completely set up perfectly, how I like it. Schedules, visuals everywhere. The ability of the kids is exactly what I'm passionate about. Yeah, and then I just mentioned it to the head teacher. I was like, you know what I used to do, right? And this sounds really good, but at the time there wasn't a teaching role available. So I became a teaching assistant in that room, an HLTA in that room. And then now me and that current teacher share part-time. I muscled my way into teaching it. But honestly, the class and the classroom sold it to me. So that was what I look for. If you're looking around, I would look for how the adults speak about the children, interact with the children. Is it quite controlling? Do they behaviour manage through fear tactics or like trying to control? Or is it really autism affirming and encouraging and with love and joy and fun and laughter? That's what I would be looking for if I was going to work there. Or it would soon look like that, because I would change things. We love bubbles and balloons. Any other similar ideas? Although we never have enough bubbles and balloons. Yeah, true. We never have enough bubbles and balloons either. My kids always get hold of the bubble solution and just tip it out. And I'm like, no! And so we end up with washing up liquid all the time. Have you tried rocket balloons? I would say Google rocket balloons. They are on eBay or Amazon. And they are so cheap and they are so fun, because you pump them up and they make a wee sound and they go miles. They're really fun. Also the car balloon toy that I shared yesterday in my story, you pump it up and then you press go and then the car flies. That's a really fun one. There's also the balloon helicopters that go around. They're really fun. And there's so many bubbles. Like, I really want to do the big bubble wand where you put it around the children. I really want to do that. But there's a whole folder of ideas just like the bubbles and balloons. It's in my Attention Autism folder on my Amazon storefront, and that's linked in my bio, and there's over 100 ideas on there. So yeah, eat your heart out. My daughter is autistic and non-verbal, age 6. She does this thing that me and my husband call self-sabotaging, where she will put things on her iPad that make her upset. What can I do to help? Yeah, this is a really common one. I once had a student that was terrified of the fire alarms, and then they used to set the fire alarm off, or used to talk about it all the time. Or a student who is obsessed with fans, but actually when they see a fan or a fan's on, absolutely hate it. And it's them trying to work out that anxiety. It's them trying to process what's happening and work it out. Is that obsession and that self-sabotaging? It might also be that what she is seeking is what she gets after she's upset, maybe. It's a way of seeking that reassurance or something, or maybe she's getting something out of it. Yeah, so it's probably her trying to work out either why she doesn't like it, or she's trying to work out, she knows that makes her upset, and she's trying to work out what upset feels like and what it is, and process that and work through that. Or she's getting something out of the aftermath of that. It's hard, isn't it? Because being upset is part of daily life, but also like it's about supporting them through that. Sometimes I delete apps that make them over upset or even just overstimulated. I just delete it. I don't know if that's the right thing to do or not, but I do. Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because it could be for so many different reasons. I don't feel like I've helped you there, but she's obviously trying to work out why that is. Why she's trying to work something out. That was a really bad answer. She's trying to work something out. I teach in an autism class in Ireland with 5 to 7 year olds. Have you got any suggestions for assessments, formal-ish? So I use Connecting Steps, which is also called B Squared. It's like an online program that you pay for, and it has loads of different statements on there, and you basically tick the statements that they've achieved. And I use this to inform IEPs and targets and things, and it gives a really clear level on where they're at, and we evidence this with photos or videos on the iPad. And that's a really great way, because then nothing's on paper. It can all be where they're at, what they're actually doing just in life, in play, in the classroom, and it kind of can fit with anything. So that's what we do. And then the children that are pre that stage, we use the engagement profile, which is also really good, which measures their engagement and interaction and attention across a repeating lesson, and you kind of judge where they're at and how they're doing. And I've got the engagement profile linked on my website. I've also got assessment for attention autism on my website. That's part of the attention autism curriculum. And I haven't got anything about Connecting Steps or B Squared, because you just have to kind of subscribe to it. Have you got any advice for teaching children who've gone through trauma? Yeah, I've taught a lot of children who've gone through trauma, but mostly as a foster carer. And that's how I have been involved with children that have been through trauma. The most important thing, I think, is to learn to allow them to be child-led, allow yourself to be child-led, and try and avoid any triggers or demands that might set them back or remind them of anything in their past, and always assume that it is a trauma response, I would say, and try not put them back into that position, because you want to be the safety, you want to create the most safe environment ever, because otherwise they're not going to learn at all anyway. So try and give them a safe environment, explain everything you're going to do before you do it, and explain over and over again. Social stories are a really good way of doing that. If you're going to go on a trip, or if there's a change happening, or anything that you want to prepare them for, social stories are a really great one, so they know what to expect. There's no surprises. And then always just be open to their play, and kind of learn about their experiences and how their brain's working through play. The children I foster, lots of revelations have come out through their play and through conversations through their play. So always just be quite in tune with that, I would say. Have you worked with really physically violent children? Yes, I have worked with physically violent children. It's always communication, though, keep in mind. It's usually children that either have no words or have lost the ability to speak, because they are so in fight, flight or fright mode that they lose their ability to communicate or understand, and then they communicate with their... So yes, I have worked with children like that. It's quite common as a special needs teacher to work with children that are physically violent, because they communicate in that way. The best thing you can do for yourself is to be trained how to firstly avoid those situations in the first place, and then also to keep yourself and them safe through that as well. Can you talk to us about speech and language therapy and your experience working with SALTs? Yeah, I've worked with many speech and language therapists in the past. It has changed a lot. Speech therapy has changed an awful lot since I first started, and that was only 15 years ago. First of all, when I first started, it was all about PECs and encouraging requesting and encouraging eye contact and withholding items until they ask for it, like in clear containers or whatever, to encourage speech. Now that has been found, obviously, looking back, to be non-autistic affirming, or non-child affirming. So now it is much more about teaching core vocabulary and not necessarily using the PECS process to teach it, just modelling and hoping that they pick something up. Also accepting all communication as equal and appropriate and wonderful. So whether that's eye contact and speech, or whether that's gesturing or pulling you or reaching, or signing, or using an iPad, or showing a photo, or using a symbol, it's all equal and all great. So yeah, it's changed quite a lot in my time as a special education teacher, and I'm sure it will keep changing and keep adapting to hopefully be even more affirming. I am an assistant psychologist in an independent specialist school. I love seeing your videos and resources and hearing you raise awareness and promote inclusion. Thank you. Oh, that's so wonderful to hear from an assistant psychologist that's based in a school. That's so awesome, because they're so needed. I do promote inclusion. I feel like I could do a better job at that, actually, because I am in a self-contained classroom currently, and I'm finding it to include my class in the mainstream school that we're attached to without it being tokenistic. I don't want to include them for my benefit. I don't want to include them so that I can call myself an inclusive teacher. I want to include them because it actually benefits them, and that looks different for every child. So one of my pupils attends assembly, another pupil sometimes attends PE, a couple of others attend Golden Time, and then that's kind of it. Because if I was to include them any more in the learning or what the mainstream class do, it wouldn't be for their benefit. It might be for the main school's benefit, because it's always good to advocate and be seen, but if it's not for my pupils' benefit, then I'm not going to put them through that anxiety-provoking situation. But it's definitely something we would like to progress on. It's something we definitely work towards, is getting out of our classroom more and into the main school, even if it's just for a walk, or even if it's just to the library and back, or even if it's just to the field or the playground or the forest school and back. We're always trying to just gently include our students, but that does look different for every student. Right, let's go to some of the speech bubble questions. Moving away from PECS to Gestalt language processing, which is, would you have any recommendations for communication boards or apps maybe? Yeah, lots of the AAC apps are super expensive. So if you have insurance or fundraising, or you for whatever reason can afford the apps, then amazing. I love Grid. One of my students has got that. We also have a student using Proloquo to go in my class, which is good. Though I do really, really like Grid. You can build sentences from it, and it feels kind of more like a typical speech in a way, rather than just separate sentences. You can kind of comment on things, and I don't know, it feels really good. I like how it works. I like Grid. If you're referred through speech and language and you have an EHCP, sometimes you can get the apps and an iPad and support and training as part of your EHCP, so definitely look into that. Free apps that you can use, I like Choiceboard. I don't think that's free actually, I think it's like £2. But I like Choiceboard for early communicators. You get a choice of up to 6 symbols on a page. That's really good for that early iPad using. And then Twinkle Symbols app is free. Again, it's not obviously as in-depth as Grid or Proloquo to go, but it's free. So it's a really great way of starting to model with your students how to use those kind of apps for communication. Or low tech. So if you've got access to a symbol program, or you can kind of make something on Word or Canva or something like that, computer program, you can make a low tech version. So something you just print out and laminate, or just print out, and then you touch and speak to them. That also could be a really great start for Gestalt language processors. I think the best thing to do for Gestalt language processors is to learn their Gestalts and to join them in there, and then to learn the context that they use it in, and to build context around their learned echolalia, their learned Gestalts, so that it shows that you understand its meaning and it gives it meaning, and then you can add little words into that Gestalt to change the context of that. For example, great cup of coffee is one of the students that I work with's Gestalt, and it's from a film that they love. And then now we're saying great cup of juice or great cup of crisps, and it's like, it means it's commenting that they really like it, or that they want something, they want the food item. And that's a great way of tapping into their Gestalts and making it meaningful and a shared experience and functional. Yeah, usually they all have meaning though. It's really good to tap into the child's meaning and what they're meaning behind it, and mimic them and let them lead in that. What advice would you give a mainstream school trying to cope with a child awaiting on an EHCP? The school is struggling with his needs. So hard, isn't it? Because EHCPs are taking so long now. Definitely follow my account and other similar, because everything that all the information that you kind of need is probably somewhere on there. So the fact that you're following my account already is also awesome, and there are others as well that might benefit you, so that you can start putting things in place already. If you're really struggling, I would contact any organisations within your local authority that might be set up to support you, any local charities that might be set up to support you, or CAMs. You don't need a diagnosis or an EHCP to access those things, so you can kind of tap into those. Or social care as well, family workers, social workers, all available to everyone. Again, I know there's more waiting lists, but it might be something else in the meantime that you can get support whilst you're awaiting an EHCP. How do you stop a non-verbal kid from throwing toys? You replace the behaviour for a more appropriate and safe behaviour. So first of all, you work out why they are throwing. Is it that they're enjoying things going up in the air? Is it that they're enjoying watching things falling past their vision? Is it that they're enjoying the bounce or the crash or the bang when it lands? Are they enjoying your reaction when they throw something? So first of all, work out why they're doing that, and then try and replace that need and that want with something a little bit safer. So say, for example, if it's the throwing up in the air, then maybe you could give some soft balls for them to throw up in the air. If it's the crash and the bang, maybe you buy some bangers or some water balloons that give a really good cause and effect when they bang, for example. That's a lot safer and a lot more appropriate than throwing heavy items. We've only got a couple more minutes, guys. I think I've answered all of the ones in the speech bubble. Let's go back to this. Non-verbal kids, how to teach them when they don't understand sign language. So there are lots of different ways that non-verbal children or non-speaking children can communicate, and to teach them this, you just have to model it. So you can be modelling sign language, you can be modelling using symbols or photos, you can be modelling an object. So for example, if it's dinner time, you could show them their knife and fork or their plate, or if it's time to go in the car, you can show them the keys, or if it's time to go outside, you can show them their coat, for example. That's a really good way and model that language. You can use an iPad, lots of different ways, but yeah, the way to teach it is just to model it yourself and model it consistently and model a whole range of ways of speaking, and something will capture them and they will start doing it too. Okay, last question. Does it look bad on a CV if you only stay at a school for 1 year? I suppose it depends why you're moving on, and they might ask that in the interview. If you're moving on because you want to progress in your learning and your breadth of knowledge and or you saw a great opportunity come up, then I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I really don't. But you just need to have that answer prepared at interview. Because they probably will ask it. If you keep changing year on year on year on year, then they are 100% going to question that, and that might go against you. But it depends on the reason. If you can justify it, if you can say, well, I progressed in my career every time, or job opportunities came up that I was really interested in, and it's added to my experience, which makes me a better teacher today, then they'd be silly to question that. Okay, last one. What are some engaging, calming techniques for the calming to end sensory circuit? Struggling to motivate an easily heightened student to complete the circuit. A really good one is wrapping up in blankets or swaddling in weighted blankets, but doing this with a song. So I have a sausage roll song that is on my feed somewhere. As part of my lives I did it, and you can roll them up as part of a song, which makes it a bit more of a game rather than boring. You can also roll exercise balls over their bodies, and they seem to really like that one. Or just laying on them, like you've had a wrestle and then you've done a bit of to and fro, and then you lay on them and then you can go again. It's like kind of part of the game. If it's part of the game, then it might be more fun. Bean bags, pea pod chairs, breath techniques, like breathing in and out, some yoga moves. It's still, because then it's still moving, it's not static, it's still active, but it is grounding. So like downward dog is a really good one because all your weight is going through your feet and your hands, so grounding you, but it's an active pose is a really good one. Okay, that was the last one. If I haven't answered your question, please leave it as a comment below this video when it goes on my feed in a second. Thank you so much for joining me. There were so many of you. I'm overwhelmed every week by how many questions and how many amazing just amazing engagement. Is incredible. And thank you for joining me, and I will see you, if you are a subscriber, next Monday. Thank you everybody. Have a good evening.